The early morning light filtered through the blinds, casting long shadows across the trading floor. It was a time of stillness, a brief moment of calm before the storm of activity that would soon engulf the room. The light seemed to dance on the surfaces, creating a mosaic of patterns that hinted at the complexity of the day ahead. Alex sat perched on a stool, the cool air biting at his skin. He could feel the weight of the day pressing down on him, a mixture of excitement and anxiety swirling in his chest. The room was quiet save for the soft hum of the computers and the occasional rustle of paper. He was not alone. Sarah, his mentor, stood beside him, her gaze fixed on the bank of monitors that flickered to life. Her presence was a steadying force, a reminder that he was not navigating this complex world alone. She had been through this before, and her experience was a beacon of guidance. "The mind is freshest at dawn," she said, her voice a low murmur in the stillness, less cluttered, more receptive. Her words were a mantra, a piece of wisdom passed down through generations of traders. It was a reminder to focus, to clear his mind of distractions and hone in on the task at hand. Alex nodded, his stomach churning with a mixture of anticipation and apprehension. He knew that today was important, a pivotal moment in his journey. The stakes were high, but so were the rewards. Iki Kutuhan feel the weight of expectation both from himself and from those around him. He was about to embark on his first pattern recognition session, a crucial step in his journey to unlock the secrets of the market. This was not just about numbers and charts. It was about seeing the bigger picture, understanding the underlying currents that move the market. Today he would attempt to see what others couldn't, to decipher the hidden language of the matrix. It was a skill that required patience, intuition, and a keen eye for detail. The ability to recognize patterns was what separated the novices from the masters. Sarah explained that the early hours were optimal for tapping into the brain's innate ability to discern patterns. In the quiet of the morning, before the world wakes up, your mind is at its most perceptive, she said. It's like tuning into a frequency that others can't hear. The distractions of the day, the constant barrage of information, all faded into the background, allowing the mind to focus on the subtle signals hidden within the noise. It was a rare opportunity to see the market in its purest form, untainted by the chaos of the trading day. Alex took a deep breath, trying to quiet the nervous chatter in his head. He knew that clarity was key, that a calm mind would be his greatest asset. He closed his eyes for a moment, centering himself, before turning his attention back to the screens. The air thrummed with a quiet energy, the promise of a new day, a new beginning. It was a moment filled with potential, a chance to make his mark. As the first rays of sunlight pierced through the blinds, Alex felt a surge of determination. Today he would rise to the challenge. A symphony of data unfolded before Alex's eyes. He had always been fascinated by numbers, but this was something else entirely. The sheer volume and complexity of the data streams were both awe-inspiring and intimidating. It was as if he had stepped into a new dimension where data was the language, and he was just beginning to learn how to speak it. Numbers danced across the screens, forming intricate patterns that seemed to tell a story of their own. Each digit, each line of code was a note in a grand symphony, a piece of a puzzle that Alex was determined to solve. It was a mesmerizing ballet of stock prices, market indicators and news feeds. The data moved with a rhythm, a flow that was almost hypnotic. Alex could feel the pulse of the market, the ebb and flow of financial tides that dictated the fortunes of millions. Each screen offered a different perspective, a different layer of the complex tapestry that made up the financial market. It was like looking at a multifaceted gem, each angle revealing a new facet, a new insight. Alex felt a wave of dizziness wash over him, the sheer volume of information threatening to overwhelm him. He took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. The data was not just numbers and charts. It was a living, breathing entity that demanded his full attention. Sarah gestured to a screen displaying a web of interconnected nodes, each representing a different company. This is the neural network, she explained. It's designed to help you see the connections, the relationships between different data points. This is the neural monitoring equipment, she continued. It allows us to track your brain activity as you analyze the market data. We can see how your brain responds to different stimuli, how you process information. The screen showed a real-time display of brain activity, a digital interface that tracked neural data with precision. Alex watched as his brain waves fluctuated, the colors and patterns shifting in response to his thoughts. Alex felt a surge of adrenaline. This was more than just a test. It was a challenge, a chance to prove himself. He was determined to rise to the occasion, to master the data and make sense of the chaos. He was wired to the machine, his every thought and reaction being monitored, analyzed. It was a strange feeling knowing that his mind was under such scrutiny, but it also gave him a sense of purpose, a drive to succeed. He was both the subject and the experiment. The data he generated would be used to refine the system, to make it more accurate, more intuitive. It was a heavy responsibility, but one that he was ready to shoulder. Don't let the data intimidate you, Sarah said, sensing his unease. The key is not to see everything, but to see what matters. Focus on the patterns, the connections. The rest will follow. Her words were a lifeline, pulling him back from the brink of sensory overload. He took another deep breath, centering himself. She was right. He needed to focus on what mattered, to find the signal in the noise. Her words were a lifeline, pulling him back from the brink of sensory overload. He took another deep breath, centering himself. She was right. He needed to focus on what mattered, to find the signal in the noise. She pointed to a screen displaying a swirling vortex of colors. This represents your brainwave activity, she said. As you begin to recognize patterns, you'll see these patterns reflected in the colors and shapes on the screen. The screen was a kaleidoscope of colors, each hue representing a different aspect of his neural activity. It was a visual representation of his thoughts, his focus, his understanding. As you begin to recognize patterns, you'll see these patterns reflected in the colors and shapes on the screen. The more you understand, the clearer the patterns will become. It's a feedback loop, a way to train your brain to see the connections. Alex nodded, his gaze fixed on the mesmerizing display. He could see the potential, the possibilities. This was more than just data. It was a new way of seeing the world, a new way of understanding the complexities of the market. And he was ready to dive in, to immerse himself in the symphony of data. Pattern-aligned performance, Sarah began, her voice taking on a reverent tone, possess a rare gift. They have the ability to see beyond the surface, to delve into the depths of data and extract meaningful insights. It's not just about numbers and charts, it's about understanding the underlying currents that shape the market. They see more than just numbers on a screen. They perceive the ebb and flow of market sentiment, the subtle shifts that can signal major changes. It's a skill that requires not just analytical prowess, but also intuition and experience. They see the stories behind the data, the interconnectedness of events, the subtle shifts in sentiment that drive market movements. Each data point is a piece of a larger puzzle, and they have the ability to see how these pieces fit together to form a coherent picture. She turned to Alex, her eyes filled with an intensity that sent a shiver down his spine. They see the matrix. It's like having a sixth sense, an ability to perceive patterns and connections that others might miss. Alex stared at the screens, his mind racing. He had always thought of the market as a giant, chaotic system, driven by forces beyond human comprehension. But now he was beginning to see it differently. He had always thought of the market as a giant, chaotic system driven by forces beyond human comprehension. But Sarah was suggesting that there was an underlying order, a hidden logic, that it could be deciphered by those with the right skills. But Sarah was suggesting that there was an underlying order, a hidden logic that could be deciphered by those with the right skills. It was a tantalizing thought, and one that filled him with a strange sense of excitement. The idea that the market wasn't just a chaotic mess, but a complex system with its own rules and patterns was both daunting and exhilarating. It was a tantalizing thought, and one that filled him with a strange sense of excitement. He imagined what it would be like to have that kind of insight, to be able to predict market movements with a high degree of accuracy. It was a skill that could be incredibly valuable, not just in terms of financial gain, but also in terms of understanding the world. Sarah explained that pattern-aligned performers were not born with this ability. It was a skill honed through years of dedicated practice. They spent countless hours studying data, looking for patterns and testing their hypotheses. It was a process of trial and error, of learning from mistakes and refining their techniques. They were like master detectives, piecing together clues, connecting the dots, until a clear picture emerged from the chaos. It was a painstaking process, but one that could yield incredible insights. They had the ability to see what others couldn't, to make sense of the seemingly random and chaotic. Alex knew that he had a long way to go, but the thought of joining their ranks, of seeing the world through their eyes, was a powerful motivator. He was determined to learn, to develop the skills and intuition needed to become a pattern-aligned performer. It was a challenging path, but one that promised great rewards for those who were willing to put in the effort. At first, the patterns remained elusive. Alex stared at the screens, his eyes darting from one data point to another. But the numbers seemed to swim before his eyes. He felt a surge of frustration, the weight of expectation pressing down on him. "Relax," Sarah said, her voice calm and reassuring. "Don't force it, let the patterns reveal themselves to you." Then something shifted, a flicker of recognition, a subtle connection that his conscious mind had missed. It was a faint whisper, a fleeting glimpse into the hidden order of the market. He couldn't quite put his finger on it, but he knew he had seen something significant. Sarah smiled, a knowing glint in her eye. That, she said, was the first stage of unconscious detection. Alex's frustration gave way to a surge of excitement. He had felt it, the spark of recognition, the moment when his brain began to piece together the puzzle. There are 3 stages to mastering pattern recognition, Sarah explained. First comes unconscious detection, then conscious recognition, and finally integrated mastery. She went on to explain that unconscious detection was just the beginning, the first tentative steps into a world of hidden connections and predictive insights.